Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of On Attachment. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about togetherness and separateness in anxious avoidant relationships and how to navigate the tension between those conflicting needs that you might have as an anxious avoidant couple. Now, full disclosure up front, I don't know that what I've titled this episode actually accurately captures what I'm going to be talking about, which is a struggle that I often have. The titles that are catchy often lack nuance. And then if I try and add more nuance to the title, then it sounds a little bit dense and wordy for a quick one-liner. So what I'm really going to be talking about today is less about how to navigate the actual time spent apart versus together, and more sharing a tip, which I think is not obvious, but is incredibly effective and transformative to soften some of the friction that can arise when it comes to separating for anxious people and coming back together for avoidant people. Because if you've noticed, for anxious folks, it is that shift from being together to apart that can be quite distressing. And for avoidant folks, it is the shift from being in their aloneness, in their own time and space, to coming back together, which can be the friction point for them. And oftentimes there can be misunderstandings, miscommunications, and those attachment wounds that we each have can be triggered in those transitional moments in ways that then lead us into conflict cycles that entrench us into that oppositional dynamic, which we're trying to get away from rather than deeper into. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and a really simple but very effective way to hopefully nip that in the bud so that you don't spiral into those dynamics so frequently, and I think really reinforce the stories that you might have around how your partner feels about you, how much they care about you, how much they respect you, all of those things. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It's going to be a short and sweet episode. Before I dive into that, a reminder that I'm still running a 50% off sale on my courses and masterclasses on my website. So if you head to stephanierig.com, you can look through my 4 masterclasses and my 2 courses, which are Secure Together and Higher Love. And you can save 50% on any of those with the code HEYBABY, all one word. The other quick announcement that I have is, just because I am absolutely terrible at reminding people, if you're someone who likes to watch things rather than listen, or maybe in addition to, I have a YouTube channel where all of these podcast episodes get uploaded in full if you would like to watch. I also have a website for the podcast. This is the one that I'm really terrible at telling anyone about, but there is a full website, onattachment.com, which has show notes, transcripts. It even has discussion questions or journal prompts for every episode. So if you're interested in that additional info, I know some of you sometimes message me and say that you take notes while you're listening. So if you'd like to have a bit more of a comprehensive set of notes or something to work off, if you're someone who likes to go a little deeper into the episodes, head to onattachment.com and you can find all of that there totally free of charge. Okay, announcements done and dusted. Now let's talk about this. So as I said in the introduction, we know to be true that for anxious folks, separation anxiety is a point of sensitivity that comes from that need for closeness, that fear of abandonment, that sense of when I'm connected with you in the sense of with you, and having that real-time observable confirmation that you're here and we're together and everything's okay. I feel good about that. I feel reassured. I'm much less likely to catastrophize and to feel like there's something wrong when I have almost the evidence here in front of me that nothing's wrong with it. You're here and I'm safe and you're safe. So that's, as we know, comfort zone for anxious people is that we are together and in that really literal, you're right next to me kind of connection. The flip side of that is that separateness, time apart, can be challenging. And as I said, it's often the transition from togetherness to separateness that can be hard. And if that's not handled in a way that is taking into account the sensitivities of the anxious partner, then those sensitivities can be amplified or exacerbated. When we look at the avoidant partner, we have, as is often the case, kind of the the other end of the spectrum. So for the avoidant partner, their alone time is really regenerative and important, and it allows them to regulate. It allows them to feel safe and secure, kind of stand on their own 2 feet, and have a sense of groundedness within themselves that then allows them to come to the relationship in a more resourced way that doesn't leave them feeling overwhelmed and kind of burnt out and cornered, or any of those feelings that are common among avoidant people. And because of that, it can be the transition from their safe space of aloneness into connection that is a bit rough for the avoidant partner. And if that's not handled with care, then again, we can see some of that friction can arise. Some of the stories that the avoidant partner might have about the relationship, about relationships more broadly, about their partner, all of those things can be activated in that transition from separateness to togetherness. So recognizing that, the really kind of quick and easy tip that I want to offer you, and it's almost like it almost feels like a cheat code for anxious avoidant relationships in this particular context, is to pay extra attention to those transitional moments. So if you are the avoidant partner and you are wanting to ease your anxious partner's anxiety around separateness so that they can go into time apart feeling much more reassured and comfortable and less likely to, hover around you to be this helicopter partner who's messaging you all the time, who's not really respecting the space, take care to soften that transition by saying things like, I love you, I'll talk to you tonight, if you are, spending time with them and then you're leaving. Or if you live together and you are doing something as simple as going off to work in the morning, for the avoidant partner, you might not think twice around, grabbing your bag and walking out the door without saying goodbye. But for the anxious partner, that's probably going to be quite an affront, or they might feel quietly hurt that you wouldn't come and find them in the house somewhere and, give them a hug and a kiss and say, I hope you have a great day, before you go off to work. So if you can pay a little bit more attention to that rather than just doing the thing that makes sense to you based on, your way of being, that could go a really long way in effecting that transition in a way that is likely to increase the comfort, the security, the sense of safety for your partner as you go into that zone that is less comfortable for them. So, as I said, just doing little things like, telling your partner you love them, giving them a hug and a kiss, telling them when you're going to see them or when you're next going to talk to them, that's going to go a really long way in easing the separation anxiety and softening that transition for your anxious partner. Now, the flip side of that, for the anxious partner who wants to contribute to the softening of that transition for the avoidant partner going in the other direction, some of the things that you might want to think about. I once heard an amazing analogy. I think it was Diane Poole Heller, who is, an amazing attachment expert. She gave the analogy that an avoidant person coming into connection from alone time is sort of like when you are scuba diving and you're coming up for air, and you don't want to do that too quickly because you can obviously have all of these complications associated with it. So you sort of want to slowly emerge. It's almost like a bear coming out of hibernation, that you want to do that gradually rather than in a way that feels really jarring or intrusive. So examples might be, and I'll draw examples from my own relationship. I know that if Joel is in his office and he's got his headphones on and he's in the middle of something, if I just go in and start talking at him, he gets really agitated by that. And for me, it's easy to go like, oh, why do you have to be so kind of rude or abrupt or, irritable in the way that you're responding to me? Because for me, I wouldn't be like that. It wouldn't bother me at all if I was in the middle of something and he started, came into my room and started talking to me. That would be fine. But it really does bother him. And I have to remind myself that we're different in that respect, that when he is in his aloneness, that is, more sacred than perhaps it is for me. And so being a bit more respectful of the bubble that the avoidant partner places themselves in, and recognizing that that's a really important time and space for them. I'm just thinking if Joel listens to this, he's probably going to be laughing because I don't do a very good job at honoring this at all. But the point stands, it's a really good thing to do, to allow your partner a bit of time to come out of hibernation, so to speak. So for example, if you do live together and you're having dinner, rather than say you're cooking dinner for your partner, rather than yelling at them and saying dinner's on the table right now, so they need to drop what they're doing and come immediately to you, you might say dinner, you send them a text if they're in a different part of the living space, dinner's going to be ready in 10 minutes or something. So that gives them a bit of forewarning, allows them to wrap up whatever they're doing and shift gears so that they can then join you in a way that they're a little bit more prepared for, rather than feeling like they've been yanked out of their separateness, or maybe if it does take them time to join you, that then you're irritated or upset that they didn't do so immediately. So having a little consideration for the fact that they're going to need a bit more time to come out of that aloneness, and that if you can give them that time, give them that forewarning, and recognize that if you intrude upon their aloneness and they have a reaction against that, it's really easy for you to then feel hurt or rejected or attacked unfairly, and then go into all of those stories around, I would never speak to you that way, or I'm just trying to help, or whatever the thing might be that you're telling yourself. Again, I am drawing all of these from personal experience, as you can probably tell, but I think having that awareness of like, it's actually not about me, it's about the sacredness of their time. And spoiler alert, the more respectful you are of their time and space, and the less you make them wrong for needing it and wanting it and protecting it, the less protective of it they're likely to be. So your partner is going to be really defensive of their right to space if they feel like you're intruding upon their space all the time, and you're blaming them or attacking them or criticizing them for needing that space. So if you can be respectful of that, if you can honor that, and as I said, this goes both ways. So we want to create this overall sense of, sensitivity and care and respectfulness of the other's needs around these transition points. So it might sound kind of simple, but I think that if you both made an effort in each respect, so the avoidant partner makes the effort in going above and beyond what they ordinarily would in terms of going from togetherness to separateness, so softening those transitions, putting in extra effort to be loving, to be caring, to communicate around when you'll next be in contact or see each other. And I think if the anxious partner then was more respectful around the transition back into connection, you'd probably eliminate a lot of, even if it's not all out conflict, like little moments, like micro moments of hurt that pile up and then turn into, this snowballing resentment that will eventually come out, or eventually, chip away at your connection and leave you feeling ultimately like your partner doesn't care about you, which I think is where so many of these little attachment wounds and ruptures end up. So I hope that that's been helpful. As I said, short and sweet episode today, but I think that, even if you're not in a relationship at the moment, it's really a useful little nugget to tuck away. Maybe you can reflect on previous relationships and where you didn't have this awareness, and you can go, oh yeah, I think that would have made a really big difference both to me and to my partner. And obviously for future relationships, knowing about that dynamic, knowing about those sensitivities, I think can be hugely helpful. So I hope you've learned something. As always, grateful for your support. Oh, actually, that's what I forgot to say at the start. We crossed over 4 million downloads of the podcast last week. So huge thank you for all of your support. That's a really incredible milestone to hit in, just over 2 years of the podcast. This podcast is independently run and produced and everything. And by independently, I mean me at home in my home office. So to be reaching so many people all over the world is really quite incredible. And I'm incredibly honoured and grateful for your support. So a huge thank you to all of you, whether you are a relatively new listener or you've been here from the start. I'm really thankful for you. Okay, that's it from me, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks, guys.